fancy stuff, and look who's here, you guys. Are you having fun?
Yes.
Is it exciting?
Yes.
Well, let me just say this. This is probably one of our favorite events, not just of our staff and the Let's Move team, but the whole house. I mean, our chefs, our butlers, our resident staff, we all look forward to this day, watching you guys walk in, so proud and so handsome and beautiful. It just touches my heart. So we are always, always proud and thrilled to have you here. So congratulations. Of course, I want to start by thanking Samuel. Oh man, what an amazing young man. Samuel, you continue to impress us, with your poise and your intellect and your passion. You're just a cool dude. And thank you for coming and introducing me. I know you have a busy schedule, and I'm so glad you had some time to fit this in. So thanks so much. And I want to join Deb in thanking our supporters, again, PBS, WGBH Boston, Newman's Own Foundation, United Airlines, they got you here. Yes. Blue Apron, that I actually know what that is, even though I don't need it because I have White House chefs. But thank you to Blue Apron. And of course, my dear, dear friend, who I call my partner in crime, who, we just talked about it. We started talking about this issue, was it 9 years ago? On the campaign trail. I want to thank Rachel Ray and her team and her Yummo organization for all their work. To Tanya, you've been such a rock star through all this, so thank you so much. Whew. I also want to recognize everyone from the Departments of Agriculture and Education, our teams here. You guys do the hard work on the ground, and then I get to come and do a great announcement and take credit for all the work that you do. Thank you for the help, not just on this event, but on so many other Let's Move activities over the years. We're going to give them a round of applause. Thank you. And of course, kids, we have to give a big shout out to the parents and the family members and the friends who helped get you here today. These young chefs are here today because of the love and the encouragement that you all poured into these young people, not just inside but outside of the kitchen every single day. And as I greeted each of you, I tried to make sure that I thanked you parents, because you raise these wonderful, amazing kids. And I know what it means to be a parent, how much you love these young people, and how proud you are. You owe them because they got you to the White House. So kids, let's give a big, huge shout out. Thank you to our families. Woo! Thank you all. Thank you so much. It's hard to believe that it has been 8 years since I first came to this convention to talk with you about why I thought my husband should be president. As you might imagine, for Barack, running for president is nothing compared to that first game of basketball with my brother Craig. I can't tell you how much it means to have Craig and my mom here tonight. Like Craig, I can feel my dad looking down on us, just as I've felt his presence in every grace-filled moment of my life. And at 6'6", I've often felt like Craig was looking down on me too, literally. But the truth is, both when we were kids and today, Craig wasn't looking down on me. He was watching over me. And he has been there for me every step of the way since that clear day in February 19 months ago, when with little more than our faith in each other and a hunger for change, we joined my husband Barack Obama on the improbable journey that has led us to this moment. But each of us comes here also by way of our own improbable journey. I come here tonight as a sister, blessed with a brother who is my mentor, my protector, and my lifelong friend. And I come here as a wife who loves my husband and believes he will be an extraordinary president. And I come here as a mom whose girls are the heart of my heart and the center of my world. They're the first things I think about when I wake up in the morning and the last thing I think about before I go to bed at night. Their future and all our children's future is my stake in this election. And I come here as a daughter raised on the south side of Chicago Remember how I told you about his character and conviction, his decency and his grace, the traits that we've seen every day that he served our country in the White House. I also told you about our daughters, how they are the heart of our hearts, the center of our world, and during our time in the White House, we've had the joy of watching them grow from bubbly little girls into poised young women, a journey that started soon after we arrived in Washington, when they set off for their first day at their new school. I will never forget that winter morning as I watched our girls, just 7 and 10 years old, pile into those black SUVs with all those big men with guns. And I saw their little faces pressed up against the window, and the only thing I could think was, what have we done? See, because at that moment, I realized that our time in the White House would form the foundation for who they would become, and how well we managed this experience could truly make or break them. That is what Barack and I think about every day as we try to guide and protect our girls through the challenges of this unusual life in the spotlight. How we urge them to ignore those who question their father's citizenship or faith. How we insist that the hateful language they hear from public figures on TV does not represent the true spirit of this country. How we explain that when someone is cruel or acts like a bully, you don't stoop to their level. No, our motto is, when they go low, we go high. With every word we utter, with every action we take, we know our kids are watching us. We as parents are their most important role models. And let me tell you, Barack and I take that same approach to our jobs as President and First Lady, because we know that our words and actions matter, not just to our girls, but to children across this country. Kids who tell us, I saw you on TV, I wrote a report on you for school. Kids like the little black boy who looked up at my husband, his eyes wide with hope, and he wondered, is my hair like yours? And make no mistake about it, this November when we go to the polls, that is what we're deciding. Not Democrat or Republican, not left or right. No, in this election and every election is about who will have the power to shape our children for the next 4 or 8 years of their lives. And I am here tonight because in this election, there is only one person who I trust with that responsibility. Only one person who I believe is truly qualified to be President of the United States, and that is our foreign trip as a First Lady. Can you believe that? This is my first trip. My first foreign trip as a First Lady. Can you believe that? And while this is not my first visit to the UK, I have to say that I am glad that this is my first official visit. The special relationship between the United States and the UK is based not only on the relationship between governments, but the common language and the values that we share. And I'm reminded of that by watching you all today. During my visit, I've been especially honored to meet some of Britain's most extraordinary women, women who are paving the way for all of you. And I'm honored to meet you, the future leaders of Great Britain and this world. And although the circumstances of our lives may seem very distant, with me standing here as the First Lady of the United States of America and you just getting through school, I want you to know that we have very much in common. For nothing in my life's path would have predicted that I'd be standing here as the first African-American First Lady of the United States of America. There was nothing in my story that would land me here. I wasn't raised with wealth or resources or any social standing to speak of. I was raised on the south side of Chicago. That's a real part of Chicago. And I was the product of a working class community. My father was a city worker all of his life, and my mother was a stay-at-home mom, and she stayed at home to take care of me and my older brother. Neither of them attended university. My dad was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in the prime of his life. But even as it got harder for him to walk and get dressed in the morning, I saw him struggle more and more. My father never complained about his struggle. He was grateful for what he had. He just woke up a little earlier and worked a little harder. And my brother and I were raised with all that you really need: love, strong values, and the belief that with a good education and a whole lot of hard work, that there was nothing that we could not do. I am an example of what's possible when girls, from the very beginning of their lives, are loved and nurtured by the people around them. I was surrounded by extraordinary women in my life, grandmothers, teachers, aunts, cousins, neighbors, who taught me about quiet strength and dignity. And my mother, the most important role model in my life, who lives with us at the White House and helps to care for our two little daughters, Malia and Sasha. She's an active presence in their lives as well as mine, and is instilling in them the same values that she taught me and my brother. Things like compassion and integrity and confidence and perseverance. All of that wrapped up in an unconditional love that only a grandmother can give. I was also fortunate enough to be cherished and encouraged by some strong male role models as well, including my father, my brother, uncles, and grandfathers. The men in my life taught me some important things as well. They taught me about what a respectful relationship should look like between men and women. They taught me about what a strong marriage feels like, that it's built on faith and commitment and an admiration for each other's unique gifts. They taught me about what it means to be a father and to raise a family, and not only to invest in your own home, but to reach out and help raise kids in the broader community. And these were the same qualities that I looked for in my own husband, Barack Obama. And when we first met, one of the things that I remember is that he took me out on a date, and his date was to go with him to a community meeting. I know, how romantic. But when we met, Barack was a community organizer. He worked helping people to find jobs and to try to bring resources into struggling neighborhoods. As he talked to the residents in that community center, he talked about two concepts. He talked about the world as it is and the world as it should be. And I talked about this throughout the entire campaign. What he said that all too often is that we accept the distance between those two ideas. And sometimes we settle for the world as it is, even when it doesn't reflect our values and aspirations. But Barack reminded us on that day, all of us in that room, that we all know what our world should look like. We know what fairness and justice and opportunity look like. We all know. And he urged the people in that meeting, in that community, to devote themselves to closing the gap between those two ideas, to work together to try to make the world as it is and the world as it should be one and the same.
Thank you. Thank you so much. With your help. Let me start. I want to start by thanking Elaine. Elaine, thank you so much. We are so grateful for your family's service and sacrifice, and we will always have your back. Over the past few years as First Lady, I have had the extraordinary privilege of traveling all across this country, and everywhere I've gone and the people I've met and the stories I've heard, I have seen the very best of the American spirit. I have seen it in the incredible kindness and warmth that people have shown me and my family, especially our girls. I've seen it in teachers in a near bankrupt school district who vowed to keep teaching without pay. I've seen it in people who become heroes at a moment's notice, diving into harm's way to save others, flying across the country to put out a fire, driving for hours to bail out a flooded town. And I've seen it in our men and women in uniform and our proud military families. In wounded warriors who tell me they're not just gonna walk again, they're gonna run, and they're gonna run marathons. In the young man blinded by a bomb in Afghanistan who said simply, "I'd give my eyes 100 times again to have the chance to do what I have done and what I can still do." Every day, the people I meet inspire me. Every day they make me proud. Every day they remind me how blessed we are to live in the greatest nation on earth. Serving as your First Lady is an honor and a privilege. But back when we first came together 4 years ago, I still had some concerns about this journey we'd begun. While I believed deeply in my husband's vision for this country, and I was certain he would make an extraordinary president, like any mother, I was worried about what it would mean for our girls if he got that chance. Now, how would we keep them grounded under the glare of the national spotlight? How would they feel being uprooted from their school, their friends, and the only home they'd ever known? See, our life before moving to Washington was filled with simple joys. Saturdays at soccer games, Sundays at grandma's house, and a date night for Barack and me was either dinner or movie, because as an exhausted mom, I couldn't stay awake for both. And the truth is, I loved the life we had built for our girls, and I deeply loved the man I had built that life with, and I didn't want that to change if he became president. I loved Barack just the way he was. You see, even back then, when Barack was a senator and a presidential candidate, to me, he was still the guy who picked me up for our dates in a car that was so rusted out, I could actually see the pavement going by in a hole in the passenger side door. He was the guy whose proudest possession was a coffee table he'd found in a dumpster, and whose only pair of decent shoes was a half size too small. But see, when Barack started telling me about his family, see, now that's when I knew I had found a kindred spirit, someone whose values and upbringing were so much like mine. You see, Barack and I were both raised by families who didn't have much in the way of money or material possessions, but who had given us something far more valuable: their unconditional love, their unflinching sacrifice, and the chance to go places they had never imagined for themselves. My father was a pump operator at the city water plant, and he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when my brother and I were young. And even as a kid, I knew there were plenty of days when he was in pain. And I knew there were plenty of mornings when it was a struggle for him to simply get out of bed. But every morning, I watched my father wake up with a smile, grab his walker, prop himself up against the bathroom sink, and slowly shave and button his uniform. And when he returned home after a long day's work, my brother and I would stand at the top of the stairs of our little apartment, patiently waiting to greet him, watching as he reached down to lift one leg and then the other to slowly climb his way into our arms. But despite these challenges, my dad hardly ever missed a day of work. He and my mom were determined to give me and my brother the kind of education they could only dream of. And when my brother and I finally made it to college, nearly all of our tuition came from student loans and grants, but my dad still had to pay a tiny portion of that tuition himself. And every semester, he was determined to pay that bill right on time, even taking out loans when he fell short. He was so proud to be sending his kids to college, and he made sure we never missed a registration deadline because his check was late. You see, for my dad, that's what it meant to be a man. Like so many of us. That was the measure of his success in life, being able to earn a decent living that allowed him to support his family. And as I got to know Barack, I realized that even though he had grown up all the way across the country, he'd been brought up just like me. Barack was raised by a single mom who struggled to pay the bills and by grandparents who stepped in when she needed help. Barack's grandmother started out as a secretary at a community bank, and she moved quickly up the ranks, but like so many women, she hit a glass ceiling. And for years, men no more qualified than she was, men she had actually trained, were promoted up the ladder ahead of her, earning more and more money while Barack's family continued to scrape by. But day after day, she kept on waking up at dawn to catch the bus, arriving at work before anyone else, giving her best without complaint or regret. And she would often tell Barack, "So long as you kids do well, Bear, that's all that really matters." Like so many American families, our families weren't asking for much. They didn't begrudge anyone else's success or care that others had much more than they did. In fact, they admired it. They simply believed in that fundamental American promise that even if you don't start out with much, if you work hard and do what you're supposed to do, you should be able to build a decent life for yourself and an even better life for your kids and grandkids. That's how they raised us. That's what we learned from their example. We learned about dignity and decency, that how hard you work matters more than how much you make, that helping others means more than just getting ahead yourself. We learned about honesty and integrity, that the truth matters, that you don't take shortcuts or play by your own set of rules. And success doesn't count unless you earn it fair and square. We learned about gratitude and humility, that so many people had a hand in our success, from the teachers who inspired us to the janitors who kept our school clean. And we were taught to value everyone's contribution and treat everyone with respect. Those are the values that Barack and I and so many of you are trying to pass on to our own children. That's who we are. And standing before you 4 years ago, I knew that I didn't want any of that to change if Barack became president. Well, today, after so many struggles and triumphs and moments that have tested my husband in ways I never could have imagined, I have seen firsthand that being president doesn't change who you are. No, it reveals who you are.
Under the White House, the president and I lived lives like most families. 2 working parents. I was busy trying to maintain some balance, picking kids up from school, trying to get things done at work, just too busy, not enough time. And what I found myself doing was probably making up for it and being unable to cook a good meal for my kids. Going to fast food a little more than I'd like, ordering pizza, and I started to see the effects on my family, particularly my kids. It got to the point where our pediatrician basically said, you may want to make some changes. So started making those changes, short, easy changes, but they led to some really good results. So I wanted to bring the lessons that I learned to the White House. This led to our new initiative, Let's Move. Let's Move is a nationwide initiative that basically focuses on 4 key components. First, we want to improve the information and the tools that parents need to make the changes that are desired in their families. The second is that we have to improve the quality of food in our schools. That's where kids are eating many of their meals, and we have to do a better job of making sure that that food is quality. Third, we need to improve access and affordability of healthy foods. We have to eliminate food deserts in this country, and we need to do it now. And finally, we have to increase physical education for our kids. We need to get them moving. And we're going to be relying a lot on major sports organizations to help us achieve that goal. And we're very excited about that. Let's Move is going to take families out of their isolation and give them the nationwide support that they need in a whole range of industries to get their kids on track to live healthier lives, to eat right, to get more exercise, and to be ready to face the challenges of the future.
So great.
She was a little itty-bitty person when she first showed up at the White House, and now she's a young lady.
Yeah, the kids that first planted, they're like going to college.
I know. We did a reunion for the last garden dedication.
Yeah.
And we had some of the kids who planted the original garden, and they were on their way to college. Man, Sam, you're old.
I know, I'm getting old. It's true. Well, first off, how are you? How is it being free? What's going on?
I'm good. Just hanging out. Everything is really great. Being former is all right. I'm good with it. You know? Everybody's good. President's good. He's, running around out there in the world with his shirt unbuttoned. No.
That's the news that's going to come out of this.
Yeah, I just heard about that. Girls are good. We settled into our new home, and we've got new offices. So we've been doing a lot of housekeeping. Schedule still seems pretty busy. I don't know why that is. I need to talk to my staff about that. Yeah, but it's good.
It's good. Little pressure off feels nice.
A lot of pressure off feels great. It's great.
I'll take that. So let's reflect a little bit.
Okay.
Looking back.
Going back.
I find myself trying to make sense of, what happened over the last, 10 years, really.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that happens bit by bit. But when the kids were really young, Barack was, starting to try to make some moves. You were actually the breadwinner, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
How do you look back on yourself and the family, sort of going about your business, having no idea what was about to happen to you? How do you remember that time?
Yeah, those are, I was back in Chicago last week for the rollout of the new Obama Presidential Center and got to stay at home for a few hours. And in that kitchen where it all began, because Sam was helping us out at that time, because I was doing a lot of traveling. I was holding down a full-time job. Kids were little. I was campaigning as well as working. My husband wasn't around. So I was in a position that many working families, parents find themselves in, where I was trying to feed my kids healthy, not necessarily doing that successfully. And we had the good fortune, I had known Sam since he was a teenager. And finding out that he was a chef and engaged in healthy cooking, he had worked with families and had turned their diets around. I kind of ran into him and I said, "Can you help us?" So having you come into our lives at a very hectic moment and just helping us kind of clean out our way of being, getting rid of the sugary snacks and taking the kids to farmers markets. I remember as we were going through the cleaning out process and getting rid of processed foods, and of course the kids were sadly looking at the refrigerator as fun thing after fun thing was chucked into the garbage. One of the things Malia said was that, "Can I keep the boxed macaroni and cheese?" She's like, please, Sam, don't throw that out.
She really tried to draw the line at the mac and cheese.
So, Sam, you said, well, the rule is that we can keep real food. So if you can show me how to turn this block of cheese into this powdery substance that is your boxed macaroni and cheese, then we can keep it. That poor little thing, because that was at the time when they were even too big to stand up at the stove without a step stool. He got her a step stool, a little apron, a little bitty knife, and a block of cheese, and she sat there for a good hour trying to macerate that cheese into powder.
Yeah. She put it in the oven. She tried to dry it out.
She tried to dry it.
It was very sweet.
It was so sad.
Then she was like, "You win," and just sort of slunk out of the kitchen.
Right. But the point that you made was that we can still have mac and cheese. It's just got to be real cheese, real milk, real pasta, real food. But those early times, that was the beginning of the thought process of how do we begin to provide the kind of information that parents need about how to feed and keep their children healthy. Because I struggled with it until you came into the picture. I didn't even realize that I was having a problem with it. So those early days were important, and watching how the girls opened up to this new process. Yeah. They weren't the problems. The kids weren't the problems. It was the parents. Right. It was us changing our habits. Yeah. That was the thing we had to overcome.
They started driving it. At a certain point, they were putting their foot down like, "No, Mom."
That, to me, is one of the most ridiculous things that we talk about in this movement is like the kids aren't happy. Well, you know what? Kids don't like math either. So what are we going to do? Stop teaching math? We're going to cut history out because there are kids who are bored with history? Look, we are the adults in the room. They look to us. So let's just stop with that. All right? I'm good if kids are mad at me, okay? My kids are mad at me at home all the time. And I'm like, I'm not your friend. I'm your mother. So you don't have to like me, but I'm helping you be a better, healthier person. So let's lead like adults. So the school lunch program is critical to help make things easier for families, not to undermine the work that they're doing. Yeah. I went off there for a second. I'm sorry.
That's why we're here.
I digressed.
You can do that as much as you want. So school lunch is obviously a big, part of the legacy of your work at the White House. What are some of the other things that stand out to you? What are you most proud of your time? Let me actually, of your time with Let's Move. And if you want to expand that to your time as First Lady, feel free.
Mm-hmm. With Let's Move, I'm proud of the PHA, first of all. I mean, this group, the work. I had a conversation with Jim Gavin, just briefly, just checking in on things. And the PHA was probably the smartest thing that we've done out of the White House. You know, helping to build an outside nonprofit organization that depoliticizes this work and can work hand in hand with the private sector and the public sector and build partnerships in a positive way. And the fact that this summit is the biggest and most successful, I mean, it does make me proud, because this is, having the PHA means that this work moves beyond politics. You know, yes, I'm involved and I will continue to be involved, not because I was the first lady, but because I care about this issue and it's not going away. But the reason why we'll be able to continue to make progress is because of the people in this room and the people who have continued to push and to march and to continue to make commitments, the corporations that are doing this outside of sometimes even their own business interests, but they're learning that it is within their business interests, leading in that way. This is smart. This is how change happens, again, because you can't always count on the government, right? We'd like to, but you can't always. That's why we've always talked about it. Government can't solve this alone. You know, corporations have to come to the table, nonprofits, parents, schools, educators. This is all our fight. And the PHA is leading in such an amazing way. So this is another thing that I think I'm probably very proud of when it comes to Let's Move. I'm also proud of the fact that there has been a culture shift, you know, and I live in a bubble. I have lived in a bubble for 8 years. I count on you to tell me what's going on out there, really. And I'm trying to get back out there. But from what I can tell, things have changed in the last 8 years, you know. The products in our stores, even how things are placed. I can tell in the commercials and how people market food differently. That's why the companies are responding, because consumers, you all, the parents, have started changing your behaviors. And one of the things we said at the outset is that if you change, the market will follow you, you know? And that has happened in many ways. Not, you know, perfectly, not seamlessly, but I'm proud of the fact that people are reading more labels and they're more thoughtful about this, and this is something top of mind.